Jamie Foxx had his new Netflix special, What Had Happened Was, in which he talks about the life-threatening medical emergency that he had that basically left him without memory, and he had no idea what was going on, and actually left him out of acting and anything else for at least 1 year. And this is the first time I have heard about the actual problems that he had. No, I read that he was gone. He had a medical emergency. No one knew what it was. And for the first time, he actually spoke about exactly what happened to him whenever he had his medical problems about a year to year and a half ago. And basically what he says that he had a brain bleed, which led him to have what's called a stroke. And typically a brain bleed is when you have what's called a hemorrhagic stroke. There are two main strokes that you can have. One is where you have a clot going into the brain called a ischemic stroke. And then you can actually have a brain bleed in which you have blood pooling in the brain called a hemorrhagic stroke. Now, as a medical professional, it's very important for me to understand exactly what is going on, because a brain bleed 100% is a medical emergency, and timing is of the essence when it comes to a brain bleed, because that brain bleed can just continue to bleed and lead to complications. Your brain is an organ that's in a confined space. And when you have blood that's in there, not only is that not good just in general, but that blood can pool in that confined space to cause compression of some of the other parts of the brain, will make it harder for us to treat and fix later on. It is a medical emergency because timing is very important, because we have to stop that bleed immediately before it can lead to long-term problems down the road. Now, symptoms of a brain bleed can include severe sudden headache, weakness on one side of the body, difficulty speaking, loss of balance, and just altered consciousness. And actually, Jamie Foxx expressed that he had a really bad headache, and then all of a sudden, he didn't remember anything for 20 days. And so a sudden severe headache can absolutely be a sign of some sort of bleed inside the brain. Now, I know that a lot of people may be worried now, oh my gosh, I have a headache, what is going on? And so when you look at the stats, headache, especially severe headache, is probably the most common symptom of a brain bleed. But a brain bleed is not the most common cause of a headache. So I don't want you to freak out that every single time you have a headache, that you have a brain bleed, but especially if you have a severe headache that is monumental in terms of how intense it is. This is part of the differential of when I see somebody in my office who has a severe headache, I think, okay, is it as severe enough for me to think they're having a brain bleed? But if they have a combination of a loss of consciousness, they have weakness, they have difficulty speaking, absolutely, I'm thinking something severe like a brain bleed or a stroke is happening, which will need severe and extreme medical attention. Now, luckily, Jamie Foxx's sister, Deidre Dixon, played a crucial role in his survival because she recognized the urgency of his condition and took him to the hospital immediately. And this is why it's very important. Time is of the essence. Early intervention is critical when it comes to a brain bleed or a brain stroke or any type of problem going on in the brain area, because rapid early treatment can change the prognosis for life, but also the long-term consequences that can occur whenever you have a brain bleed like this as well. This is why early intervention is critical, it's important, and can reduce complications down the low. Now, when Jamie Foxx woke up, he just realized he couldn't walk and he was cut to a wheelchair. So recovery from a brain bleed and a stroke can involve very intense rehabilitation, physical therapy, getting your motor skills back, occupational therapy so you can relearn daily activities, speech therapy so you can learn to speak again as well. So it's a very intense recovery. And this probably explains why it took Jamie Foxx up to a year to get to feeling better as well, because the intensity of the bleed that he had, but also the long-term process that it can take when it comes to having a bleeding like this as well. Now, Jamie Foxx's medical emergency underscores the importance of recognizing the symptoms and seeking immediate attention. So we use the acronym FAST, which gives us and you a clinical clue that something bad like this is happening. This includes face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulties, and if you have this, you need to have the time to call a medical emergency or services ASAP. So if you notice somebody who has maybe a headache, their face starts to droop, their arm becomes weak, they have speech difficulties, don't wait on this. Immediately call 911, because once again, time is of the essence, and it's critical when it comes to timing and stroke management. The quicker a person receives medical attention, the better their chance of recovery is going to be, and the better it's going to be for them long term as well.